Hello, welcome, Jon.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Thanks for joining us. Can we start out by having you share a little bit about your journey?
Sure. Yeah, my journey is, from a very young age, I remember being really interested in some concepts. I remember reading Jurassic Park and um, hearing things about butterfly effect and chaos theory, which was interesting as I look back now. And as I found myself doing my studies, mostly after high school, when I was in college, I found that I was really drawn to psychology and human behavior as a study. And so since then, I've always been fiddle faddling with human behavior and concepts. And it wasn't until 3, 4, 5 years ago that I went through a really tough stretch, kind of the dark hour of the night, as they say, and realized that life wasn't what I thought it was, and things weren't panning out quite the way I thought they should, and had a long period of introspection and reflection, and realized that some of what I was fascinated about in terms of psychology, I could start applying to myself. And through some wonderful books, podcasts, support, therapists, friends, was able to really start to understand how some of the limitations and limiting beliefs that I had unconsciously programmed into my life, how those could start to be noticed, be made aware of, and then take some meaningful, constructive direction on how to upgrade and rewire a lot of those beliefs that I found were no longer serving me. And so at that point, I got really fascinated, as I was basically my own best guinea pig in working to rewire things that had basically mental frameworks and concepts that really were holding me back. And so I can say, I began that practice about 4 years ago diligently, and have been working on that ever since, along with a lot of other friends and folks that have come into my life, and you, of course, and our partnership evolving. And which leads me here now, which is I'm really passionate about human behavior, mental health, personal empowerment, limiting beliefs and rewiring those to more empowering frameworks that we can build from. And I'm still practicing all of these things, and I will continue to practice. I don't think it's something we ever arrive doing. And so through that practice, I think I have seen that what I have learned and what I have been given and what I have been taught, I feel like I can reciprocate that. And for those who have ears to hear and eyes to see, I'm honored if I can say anything that has helped me that might help somebody else on their path as well. So that's kind of a nutshell of my journey and where I'm at this point in time.
Well, thank you for sharing. It's definitely been a journey, but it's also been really beautiful to be able to walk this path together.
Yeah, it has been. And some of those cliches ring so true, about it's not the destination, it's the journey. And that's something I apply now. I definitely think it's, once we start to practice and really truly work on ourselves, it takes a little bit, but after a fairly short while, I think there's a powerful realization to know that we are actually climbing a mountain without a summit, and that we will never actually arrive. Hence that cliche being so true about it being all about the journey and not so much about the destination.
So about 4 years back, we were kind of both hitting this place of rock bottom. We had a wonderful therapist that we were working with, and she suggested that we read a book. Will you share just a little bit about that book? And I really feel like that was one of those pivotal moments on our path where we were able to start questioning and to start looking, well, even that we could upgrade those beliefs, right?
Yeah, that book, it is called Code of the Extraordinary Mind, and it was written by Vishen Lakhiani, who is also the founder of an online learning platform called Mind Valley. That has been really a pivotal resource, I think, in both of our pathways to development. And the most powerful concept that was extracted out of that book was, yes, just this notion of being able to gain an awareness to our beliefs, examine those beliefs, and if we found, or if I found that those beliefs were not serving us, or were serving us in a way that was detracting from our growth, progress, and expansion, that by looking at those things and becoming aware of them, then we could actually do something about them in terms of upgrading. And so, yeah, that was really a huge eye-opening, mind-opening, heart-opening experience to read that book and just gain an awareness that we could look at beliefs in a more expansive view, and even as an observer of those beliefs, and really dive in and see how they were helping and hurting us, and if they were hurting us more than they were helping us, that we actually could pull those out like a microchip and upgrade them to the next best processor. So yeah, that was a huge help, huge eye-opening book with some very powerful concepts in there that we were able to apply.
Let's dive a little bit more into limiting beliefs. Can you maybe give a definition of what that is, and then what do you do when you realize you have a limiting belief?
So I think a limiting belief can be something conscious, but I more often think these are unconscious programs, if you will, if we want to use ourselves as as the metaphor or analogy of being a computer, is that these are programs that have been written into us that are hurdles or hindrance to our growth and expansion. Just a really quick and easy example of a limiting belief might be, let's say as a child, I get scared by a clown. A balloon pops in front of me that a clown is trying to give me, so I get scared, and so I unconsciously write a long-lasting program that clowns are scary. And that fear response from that experience, along with my language and the emotions that I felt, write a powerful program that then limit me from going to any birthday party, because I'm afraid that a clown, that there's just a remote possibility that a clown could be there. Now, that's kind of a trivial example, but if we apply that to a lot of different arenas, that to me is a very interesting model of how a limiting belief can be formed, and how our behaviors can be limited because of that limiting belief being written into our subconscious.
So another example that comes to mind is the thought that I'm not smart. And I think I'm not smart. And in Carol Dweck's book, she talks about mindset and shifting our mindset, and how if you're raised and you believe that you're born smart and that you can never become smart, then that's a really good example of a limiting belief. Instead of the mindset maybe of working hard and being able to learn and to put those things together to gain wisdom, to gain knowledge, and to be successful.
Yeah, I think you're dead on there. I think that a key that I have found that has been really helpful in identifying limiting beliefs involves anything that has to deal with, like you mentioned, something that is fixed, that is static or stagnant, something that is so rooted in a finite sort of sense, like you said, like intelligence being something that is fixed, that you only get so much of it and that's it. I think all of those things are contrary to what really is going on out there, which is there's an abundance of everything. And so any type of belief that we adopt or program into ourselves that entails a limitation or something that is fixed is something worth becoming aware of and really examining thoroughly to see if it's actually true or not.
Well, and I think it's good to pause here for just a moment and to think of some of our limiting beliefs and how those things might possibly hold us back. Can you think of any other examples in your own kind of life where you've been able to shift that limiting belief to something, or to prove that limiting belief as false?
Yeah, so the funny one was, I think this is really funny, but it's a powerful example to me, and I still look to this example as a model. After I read that book, I was talking to a friend, and the words came out of my mouth, and I was paying attention to my words and this notion of things being fixed. And I said something to the effect of, "Oh, I can't do pull-ups. I'm no good at pull-ups." And as I said them, and I had probably said that so many times before in my life, ever since junior high, I looked at that phrase and I remembered back to, oh yeah, I remember being in 7th grade in junior high and pull-ups were really hard. And I was a tall kid and lanky, and I just adopted all of these different things that reinforced that belief, and that I reinforced them all through my life about, oh, well, I'm just bottom heavy. My legs are too heavy and I just can't do pull-ups. And so when I said that, a light went off. I said, oh, there we go. Limiting belief. Let's try this out. So am I really not good at pull-ups? Can I really not do pull-ups? So I decided that I would apply a little bit of a process and some discipline to test this belief. And I would walk the dogs every morning. And so when I walked the dogs, I would walk by a elementary school that had a jungle gym. And I decided that I was going to go try to do pull-ups every time I walked past the jungle gym. Well, the first day I went, I couldn't do a single pull-up. So I decided I'd just go sit and hang on the bar. I did that for a few days. Slowly, I would gain strength. I would make sure that I was true to my task and try to do pull-ups every single time I would pass that playground. And after doing that for a few days, I started to be able to do a pull-up. Then I could do 2 pull-ups. And then I kept doing that over a number of weeks and probably a couple of months. Probably about month 3, I remember that I could go and do a dozen or more pull-ups. And I thought, hey, if I could do 12 to 15 pull-ups, that's being pretty good at pull-ups. So the really interesting part about that is certainly there was like a physical change that I underwent from a strength perspective, the muscles and all those kinds of things. But I think what really benefited me most in that was the psychological, was, the application of a process and some discipline, doing pull-ups even when I didn't want to on some of those days, and then seeing the physical change, but then noticing the psychological change where I had tangible evidence that I took a belief that I had held on to for 30 some odd years of my life, and that I could actually do something about it myself. And so the empowerment and the sense of power that I gained from that really became a foundational piece of this ability to look at limiting beliefs and take meaningful action to rewrite them.
And it really does change the neurological pathways in your mind and the way that things trigger and the way that you think about things. So it really is upgrading those processes and the way that you think.
Yeah, and to have something that, I think the physical part of it, not in the look of how I looked, but like just knowing that I could do a dozen pull-ups. and the sense of confidence, there were just so many other things that came along with this little exercise, just became so powerful. And even if it was something that was more abstract, perhaps a different mental framework further on down the road, I could look back and say, I've done this before, and I have done it once, so I can do it again, and I can do it again, and I can do it again.
So it builds it's confidence, but it's also building, what do you call it? Kind of that will and that character within you.
Yeah, I think there was this element of setting out to do something, putting a process in place, understanding that it was going to require discipline, and sticking to that. And so, yes, you're right on. A real key element that came out of that for me was this concept of being true and loyal to oneself, and making a commitment. My commitment in this exercise was every time I walk by that playground, I'm gonna do pull-ups, even if it means just hanging on the bar. And there were cold mornings, there were, lots of times I didn't want to do it, but I did it and I stuck to it. And in that element of building credibility within myself by just doing the incremental thing, day after day, there was a lot of power in that. I psychologically and internally was credible and loyal to myself. And so just having that building within me was a really powerful element as well.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. So for someone that's listening, that's maybe new to this process, wanting to examine some limiting beliefs, what are some steps that they could start doing today? What are some of those things that can help create that awareness?
Well, I kind of have, in my own practice, I have drilled it down to 3 E's. They're all words that start with E. And what's interesting about these is that these can serve as tools to rewrite the programs that we have written. What's interesting about it is that these tools are also the way that we have written these programs. So I think the phrase I like to describe these is the way in is also the way out. It's just becoming aware of what is going on and doing something about it. So these 3 E's are emotions, expressions, and experiences. So briefly, emotions. Emotions play such a powerful role. And I think, at least for me in my own personal journey, I certainly felt a lot of emotions. And as a young child, I felt a lot of big emotions. And certainly you have a level of awareness when you're mad or sad or angry or depressed or even joyful and happy. But in my later years, after, some of these books and things, taking a step back and really understanding what I was feeling was really key. So the concept of using our emotions as an indicator system and taking a step back from the emotions and being an observer is a key part of this process. So the way that looks for me is that when I feel something, then I start to examine that. And maybe after I have an experience, let's say I'm at work and I'm talking to my boss and I get a feeling of anxiousness or nervousness that comes up. My boss is great. I really don't have any reason to feel nervous around him. He's super accommodating. But as I was working, I felt these nerves. And so after my interactions with him, I would go back to my office and I thought, wow, what was going on there? I felt this wave of anxiety come up. I felt this constriction in my chest. And so I started to understand the dialogue, and I came to that conclusion that there was no reason. He wasn't busting my chops or anything like that. That this was something that was a reaction within me where I was wanting to have all the answers and say the right things and come across as knowing what I was doing and all these kinds of different beliefs that I had. And these emotions that I had were really powerful. And I know looking back now that they were kind of probably blocking me from being in an open and creative, empowered place. So just taking a step back as an observer to our emotions, can be a really powerful tool. So in essence, I think emotions are an unbiased indicator of the beliefs that we hold, especially the subconscious beliefs. Sometimes we might feel an emotion and we may not know what the backdrop or what the underlying belief is, but through the understanding and observing of that emotion, we can kind of gain some awareness to it. Now, we also have pet peeves and things like that. We kind of know some things that might evoke an emotion out of us. And so those are a lot more conscious, So if someone's doing a click pen, that evokes an emotion out of me. It makes me nervous. It just kind of drives me nuts. So I know that, and I know that about me, but still I was able to gain that awareness just because I'm observing. But what I think are really interesting about emotions is they can really uncover awareness in a powerful way for the subconscious beliefs that we're holding.
And it's fascinating where they show up too. Like I've found as we've been practicing this more and more, like I'll be doing something that feels like seemingly normal, but something sparks it or triggers it. And then I need to just take myself out of that situation so I can be in a place so I can feel what the emotion is and work through the emotion, but also to kind of lean into it and to uncover what is sparking this. And it's been fun to do as a family. I mean, fun in the way that it's hard, but it's fun in the uncovering of and to, process those things and to realize a lot of these things are things that happened when we were very, very little. And we didn't maybe have the communication skills or capacity to verbalize the things that were going on. And so we kind of create these stories like you were saying with the clown story, and just realizing like, oh, we can let go of that and we can surrender that and we don't have to carry that anymore.
Yeah. As long as we understand that it's not real.
Yeah.
That clown story, those emotions felt could be really powerful. And it's a natural thing to feel that fight, flight, freeze response. That's what I think is so fascinating, is that is a hardwired system from our hunter-gatherer ancestry that everybody carries. And so it's completely natural to feel really strong emotions in certain situations or with certain stimulus in our environment. And it's an evolutionary tool that we have to keep us safe. But certainly getting scared by a clown is not like getting chased by a tiger. But our bodies are designed, our hardware is designed to evoke a similar emotion because our bodies are trying to keep us safe. Our brains are trying to keep us safe. So it's a completely natural thing to feel. And the power of an emotion is that then those feelings write that program of clowns are bad, just as much as tigers are bad. And then we use language. That's my next one, which is our expressions, the internal dialogue and even the external dialogue and the words that we choose to reinforce within ourselves those limiting beliefs can become really powerful. Throughout my lifetime, I could say thousands and thousands of times over, internally and externally, I don't like clowns. Clowns are bad. And the language becomes a powerful reinforcing tool to the emotion that we felt, which leads to the third E, which is experience. So that experience can be a singular experience, but it can also be our life experience and the way we experience life. So in the clown example again, our experience is going to be completely changed in how we live life, because we are going to avoid any experience that could entail the clown, because we have reinforced through language that clowns are bad, and we have felt very strong fear that also is reinforcing. So with those three things together, we end up altering our experience. And then those three elements work together to continually loop and reinforce those beliefs. Now, gaining an awareness to our emotions, expressions, and our experiences and how they work together, we can start to invert that. We can start to notice our language, kind of like I did with my pull-up example. As soon as I said, I can't do pull-ups, a light went off that I had never had go off before. And it was because I was using finite, limited language of I can't, I'm no good at. And one quick little side tool, a side hack that I have for our language is that when we start to notice that stuff, you can add a really powerful 3-letter word to any phrase that completely changes the energy and the dynamic of it. So that 3-letter word is yet. So I could say, I'm no good at pull-ups yet. And by adding that yet, it creates an opening to that statement. It is no longer a finite, closed off statement. It actually creates a pathway to expansion, because it's insinuating that there's potential there that I have yet to explore, and that I can explore, and that I very well could, and do something about not being good at pull-ups yet. And just that little 3-letter word can be extremely powerful from a psychological perspective in beginning to rewrite some of these programs.
I love that. This is something we practice in our home, and something that Jon's really good at adding to sentences. If any of us say something like, oh, I gotta do this, and he's like, yet. And then you kind of start reframing that and thinking of the possible, right? Like, well, what if I looked at, just by looking at it that little bit differently, you are able to see what you can do and what is possible.
Yeah, because we can really do anything.
Yeah.
And just by adding that yet, can just be a really empowering, simple tool to apply to the language that we use. And again, that can be applied to our internal dialogue just as much as it can our external dialogue.
Well, and do you remember the statistic for how many thoughts or comments we have in our own mind every day? I want to say it's in the thousands.
Yeah, we typically we have over 6,000 thoughts in a day. And so, of those 6,000 thoughts, how many of them are empowering? How many of them are self-critical? And even taking a small percentage and turning them into more powerful, open-ended statements through adding that little yet can be a really important trajectory shift in our day-to-day.
So what else have you found that has been helpful in shifting your limiting beliefs?
Well, I think those two tools are the most key, which are, again, emotions and expressions. The tools that those can be for us really can change everything. And the way they change everything is that they begin to alter our experience. And we are literally able to see what we are primed to see. There's a concept of some other hardware within us called the reticular activation system. And I find this really powerful, which is basically what the reticular activation system is. It's a hardware that we carry that allows us to see what we are primed to see. We have so much data coming at us all the time. And so we have to have, our bodies and brains have created cognitive shortcuts to allow us to filter our environment. So what that entails is that we filter out a lot of the data and the inputs that we are exposed to what's most important. So a great example of this reticular activation system is, let's say we go car shopping and we settle on that we really love a red Honda Civic. And we drive away from the car lot and we're thinking, we haven't purchased it yet, but we're like, man, we're really keen on this red Honda Civic. And we hit the road and hit the freeway, and all of a sudden we see red Honda Civics everywhere. They're everywhere. And so what's going on there is that once we have become primed to see red Honda Civics, now we see them. And we say, well, gee whiz, we weren't even seeing those before. We had no idea that there were this many red Honda Civics on the road. Well, there were always that many red Honda Civics on the road. It's just that our reticular activation system had not yet been primed to see the red Honda Civics. So that concept of the red Honda Civic can work with everything, especially our attitude. We can control our attitude. We can take a disposition of optimism and the glass being half full and not being half empty. And when we do that, and when we incrementally practice that behavior, then we activate our reticular activation system and we start to observe things that are more in alignment with that optimistic attitude. Then by observing those things, then we end up reinforcing those things with our emotions. We see a mama duck with all of her ducklings, and we start to feel like this warmth. Oh, look how beautiful and cute that is. And then I just did it. We use our language to reinforce those emotions that we feel, and then all of that leads into this experience. And so we start to see, observe, and reinforce things in our environment and within us that are more in alignment with what we are priming ourselves to see, feel, and hear. So it really is, I think that's why having a gratitude practice is really important, because it puts us in that mode of priming ourselves to see things that we are in alignment with in terms of gratitude, rather than having a focus on scarcity or lack or what we don't have enough of, or whatever the other cases may be. And that, to me, is a really powerful shift to have in just the way we are observing and experiencing our environments around us.
And it's life-changing, right?
Right, yes. And it's simple.
Mm-hmm.
I have found that it does take practice, but it is not impossible. Waking up each day and focusing on the positive and doing it in a genuine way. It's not just this, I'm going to say positive affirmations all day long and this and that. They can be very powerful. Affirmations can be powerful, footholds to get us started. But truly believing in a benevolent universe and a loving God is key, rather than a punishing God and a universe and a world that is out to get you at every turn. That is a key belief that I know that we have upgraded. And knowing that life is constantly conspiring on our behalf is a hugely empowering mindset shift. And when we shift that mindset and truly believe that that is the case, then our experience and how we experience life certainly changes as well. And those incremental daily sort of things end up stacking up. And a month or 6 months or a year after, or even longer, that you look back at the path that you've traveled and you think, wow, my goodness, I cannot believe how far we have come, how different we are experiencing life than we were 20 years ago or 2 years ago. And then having those checkpoints that we can look back and see and have gratitude for are reinforcing elements that are the positive side of that feedback loop.
That's great. I think that is a really great way be on your path, to take those incremental steps, like you're saying, but that, like on a compass, like when you're navigating at sea, like just the smallest tick, even in one direction, will dramatically change, right, over time.
Yeah, 100%. I think for myself, it's easy to get caught into a trap of I want life to change right now, and I want to flip this switch, and I want things to be different tomorrow.
Never
And
never
I want
happens.
to be fit, I want to be healthy, I want to be wealthy, I want to do all these things, and I want to be there, and I want to flip this light switch and have it be all done tomorrow.
Right.
Well, I don't believe that that's the way it works, but I do believe it's more of a dial where we just click the dial here and there, and those things start to stack up. And those daily incremental things, even the multiple, even to our thoughts, the thousands of times a day type stuff that we can alter, can be, that is the vehicle. Those are the things that stack up quickly. And then I do believe that once the trajectory starts to change with a click here and a click there, then all of a sudden those clicks add up, and then things change in a big hurry. But there needs to be, I'm kind of convinced that adding discipline, practice, and focusing and continually utilizing tools to gain additional awareness, and then utilizing tools to do something about that awareness that we've gained, that's the process. And those things stack, and then life changes quickly.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Well, I would just say that, like I started with this podcast, I am my own best guinea pig, so if this can happen to and through me, I would say to anybody listening that you are also capable and empowered of undergoing a huge personal radical transformation of your own, and that all of the answers that you need are already within you. And certainly there are things that we all need in terms of support, guidance, awareness. But once we have an awareness, that is so key to making meaningful change. And I think that through awareness, that's where we end up gaining the option for personal growth and empowerment, rather than living unconscious and with these programs that are written into our subconscious. So I truly believe that anything around us that serves to enhance our awareness is powerful and something we can continually be grateful for, because ignorance is not bliss. It never was, never will be. And so to gain an awareness and being able to know better and then do better is extremely, extremely powerful.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Appreciate you sharing about limiting beliefs and some really great tools on how to do that.
Well, it's an honor and a privilege. Thank you very much.